This is CNN.
Hello and welcome to CNN Overnight. I'm Dave Michaels of the CNN Center in Atlanta. Texas police say 35-year-old George Hennard drove his pickup truck through a restaurant window, opened fire on the lunchtime crowd, and killed 22 people before killing himself. Authorities were still removing bodies hours after the attack at a Luby's cafeteria in Killeen, Texas. At least 20 other people were wounded. Police say they do not know why Hennard went on the shooting rampage. Witnesses say Hennard shouted something about Bell County or Belton before he opened fire. Killeen is in Bell County, and police say Hennard was from Belton, Texas. One witness describes what she saw.
The man jumped out the pickup and he said, "This is what Belton made me do. Is it worth it? Is it worth it?" And then he started shooting people. He shot by 8 people when he got out the truck, and then he said that and he started shooting again. And he was shooting around in a circle. And as he was going around, the circle was getting bigger and bigger. And he came over to the table, and I looked at him. I looked up at him from under the chair, and I guess Nancy moved. She was on the floor, and he shot Nancy in the head instead of shooting me.
Authorities say this was the worst mass shooting in U.S. history. The U.S. Navy is reportedly prepared to publicly apologize for saying a crew member deliberately caused the explosion on the USS Iowa 2 years ago. The explosion killed 47 sailors. The Navy blamed gunner's mate Clayton Hartwig for the explosion. He was killed in the blast. Reports say the Chief of Naval Operations believes the latest studies into the explosion are inconclusive as to what caused the blast. The Navy is expected to make the apology at a Pentagon briefing Thursday. The USS Iowa was retired last year. A group of health, sex, and education experts is criticizing sex education in U.S. schools. A report released Wednesday by the National Guidelines Task Force says sex education should be broadened. The privately funded group says classroom discussions should involve explicit terminology and controversial issues. Instead of controlling youngsters' sexual behavior, the experts say their goal is to produce healthier human beings.
These guidelines are based on the premise that the primary goal of sexuality education is the promotion of adult sexual health. A sexually healthy adult is not defined by the quality of one's sexual acts, but rather the ability to maintain relationships, to interact with both genders in respectful and appropriate ways, to identify and live according to one's values, to practice health-promoting behaviors, and to discriminate between life-enhancing sexual behaviors and those that are harmful to oneself and to others.
The report was paid for by the Carnegie Corporation and endorsed by the National Education Association. Firefighters in the Spokane, Washington area are trying to battle more than 20 large forest and grass fires. 3 people have reportedly been killed, and from 50 to 75 structures have been destroyed. Residents of several Spokane suburbs have been evacuated. Authorities say many of the fires were started when high winds took down power lines. Shifting winds and dry conditions then helped the fires to spread. Firefighters are also battling blazes in northern Idaho, Oregon, and Montana. In all, more than 38,000 acres have been damaged by fire in the northwestern United States. Next on Crossfire, can Congress break President Bush's veto streak? I'm Dave Michaels. We'll have more news at the bottom of the hour.
Washington, Crossfire. On the left, Mike Kinsley. On the right, Pat Buchanan. Tonight, the end of the line. In the Crossfire, Republican Representative Newt Gingrich of Georgia and Democratic Representative Tom Downey of New York.
Good evening and welcome to Crossfire. After the nastiest nomination battle of the 20th century, Judge Clarence Thomas will be sworn in as Justice Thomas, the second black ever to sit on the U.S. Supreme Court. But while the Senate battleground is silent now, the wounds are still wide open. Today, Mr. Bush chalked up yet another victory as his veto of that $6.4 billion jobless benefits bill was sustained in the Senate by 2 votes, enough to keep the president's perfect record. Not a single Bush veto has been overturned. Tonight, has the campaign of '92 begun, and will it be as bitter as what we saw last weekend? But first, Let's take a look at the worst criminal massacre in U.S. history today in Killeen, Texas, leaving 23 dead. Will this mass killing with a semi-automatic pistol force the crime issue back to the top of the political agenda? Let's go down to Killeen, Texas now, where CNN's Mike Capps is on station. Mike, it's been some 7 or 8 hours since the massacre occurred, and there's been precious little information about the individual who did it or the motivation. Are the police holding back, or have they not got the information? What have you been able to pick up?
So far, it's very difficult to tell. The police have not made themselves readily available at this hour. They're holding a news conference where we are expected to find out more about the gunman who was involved in this. Let's briefly retell this tale here that has shocked this military community. A gunman, about 12:41 local time, drove a pickup truck through the front window of a Luby's cafeteria on the main service road of a main freeway here in Killeen, Texas, which is the home of Fort Hood, a large military installation. The man crashed this pickup truck through the window, got out and hollered, "This is what Bell County has done to me." Bell County is the surrounding county here. As he opened fire, he pointed toward the service line of this filled cafeteria and began systematically firing with a Glock semi-automatic 9mm weapon. The weapon held 17 rounds. He reloaded as he was firing. The crowd, as you might have imagined, panicked severely. 22 people died. The gunman himself committed suicide. 20 additional people were injured in this massacre. Evidence of that wide-scale panic. One woman became so panicked she ran into the back of the cafeteria, locked herself in a freezer. She is in the hospital now in serious condition, suffering from exposure, believe it or not. Bodies are still inside. A temporary morgue, a refrigerated morgue, has been set up here. The bodies will be taken first to Fort Hood, and then they will be taken to Dallas for autopsies. As we said, the police news conference is going on at this hour. We do know that the gunman is a 35-year-old native of Belton, Texas. We do not know a name at this point. Yesterday was his 35th birthday. Police are saying that they may have fired shots, exchanged shots with this gunman. The gunman may have indeed been injured by police, but they found his body in a restroom. He did commit suicide. That is the scene from here in Killeen, Texas, and we'll be having more on this all evening here on CNN. Mike Capps.
One more quick question, then we'll let you go, Mike. This is Mike Kinsley.
Hi, Mike.
Is there at least a little, is there any speculation about what he meant by what Bell County has done to me?
None whatsoever. We have heard none so far, and the police are being very systematic in their investigation, taking their time inside, dealing with the crime scene, dealing with the body, since, after all, this is the largest case of its kind in American history. They want to make sure they have all the loose ends tied up before they begin discussing this, and that, in my mind, is what's taking us so long here.
Okay, thanks a lot, Mike Capps, and we'll certainly come back to you, even in the middle of Crossfire, if there's any important development in this story. Thanks a lot. Let's go down to Newt Gingrich, who's up on Capitol Hill. Newt, isn't it ridiculous that we're even still discussing the subject about whether a gun like this should be legal? Now, President Bush's crime bill bans 13 specific kinds of semi-automatic weapons. Even that compromise had to be rammed down his throat by liberals. Why should a gun, it would not include the gun that was used in this case, why should a gun like this one, this Glock, be legal?
Well, let me say, first of all, Michael, that I think that focusing on the guns doesn't get you anywhere. New York has outlawed guns for 50 years and is an extraordinarily violent city. D.C. has outlawed guns. The gun that was used to shoot Ronald Reagan was illegal, and the assassin, or the attempted assassin, didn't care. The fact is, you've got to focus on the perpetrator. You've got to focus on criminals. You've got to focus on the act of using the gun, because it is proven physically impossible, not just in the U.S., but in all of Latin America, for example, and in many other parts of the world, to block people who want guns from getting them.
But Newt, right. Every other advanced civilized country in the world, Britain, France, Germany, people come to this country, they say, we love America, but we look at you, and this is the one thing we cannot figure out. You guys are crazy to allow these guns to be legal. Don't they have a point?
Well, let me say, for example, Michael, in Switzerland, every adult male has a semi-automatic weapon at home.
And it has to be kept, taken apart in his closet.
But he has it, and nobody goes in and checks. And all I'm saying to you is that there are a lot of statements made that don't exactly fit the facts.
Why should we ban 13 kinds and not this kind? What sense does that make?
The fact is, Michael, that in this country, and we're having votes in the House today and tomorrow on these very bills, and I couldn't get over to the studio because we had a very close vote just now on the death penalty, and we passed it, which I think is good for the country, and that we are gradually trying to undo 30 years of liberals, frankly, weakening the police system, weakening the judges, weakening the prisons, and making it relatively easy for people who feel that they want to engage in lawless behavior. Now, I think you've got to decide. If you are for us having a safe society, then you have to be for locking up criminals, and you have to be for a very different system than the one that, in fact, you advocate.
Tom Downey, isn't it absurd to think that someone who's going to go in and murder 22 people is going to be deterred from getting himself a .45 automatic, which is a semi-automatic, .45, which we've had around for 100 years. There are millions of them out there. He's going to be deterred by you fellas saying he can't have one?
Pat, first of all, I would want to express my sympathies to the people who have lost loved ones in this tragedy. I think that clearly you're dealing with a deranged man in this instance, and I think to the extent to which we can diminish the opportunity for deranged people to get automatic or semi-automatic weapons.
Well, deranged people can't buy them in Texas.
Well, but apparently this gentleman got them someplace, and it would seem to me that the weight of evidence would be on the side, as Michael has pointed out, of those countries that severely restrict semi-automatic weapons. We should outlaw them. The fewer that there are, the better off we will be.
But you're from New York, and you know they murder people left and right with guns up there, and you got the Sullivan law, the toughest. But you got the toughest anti-gun law in the country. You don't deter criminals, and you don't
deter criminals in New York when you can buy the gun in Texas.
Part of the problem in New York is that the vast majority of guns that we find on the hands of these people have been imported or have come from other places. So New York,
you don't manufacture handguns, do you, in New York City?
But New York, no, but they bring them in from other jurisdictions. So in New York, we can have tough gun laws, but if the rest of the country doesn't, we're disadvantaged because of it.
Newt, name me one thing in this bill of President Bush's that would have prevented this crime today.
Michael, go to New York City, look around.
Are you going to answer my question?
Yeah, and my answer is going to be, I think this particular tragedy probably cannot be prevented unless you are prepared, and maybe you are, to confiscate all the weapons in this country. Now, if you're prepared to confiscate weapons and to say to the American people, we're now going to pass a constitutional amendment, eliminate the Second Amendment, eliminate the right to bear arms, fine. I think that's a rational position. I think liberals who have the guts to say with a straight face, we don't think anybody except the military and the police should have weapons, have a position.
No, we're saying semi-automatic weapons.
Wait a second. I want to go back to Pat's point. You think that this guy couldn't have done tremendous damage with a shotgun? He couldn't have done tremendous damage with a deer rifle? He couldn't have done tremendous damage with a pistol? Well, the fact is
22 people, more than that in a few seconds.
Shotguns, I mean, do you know a semi-automatic weapon is merely one where you pull the trigger each time it fires?
Well, it managed to kill a lot of people, Pat.
You can kill a lot of people.
All right, you and I will have plenty of chance to get into this. We got to take a break. When we come back, we're going to talk about Bush's veto of that unemployment bill.
I put off going to the doctor. But this burning stomach kept waking me up at night. Finally, I just went. I can imagine how relieved I was when my doctor said, Mylanta. He said I had heartburn. And heartburn like mine needed a strong medicine.
Mylanta is strong medicine, strongly recommended. In fact, Mylanta is the antacid doctors recommend most.
My doctor said Mylanta.
Now available in cherry and cool mint cream flavors.
Hey, I know how you feel. Your weight is up, your energy's down, your self-esteem's low, your blood pressure's high. You know what you need? Exercise. But who has the time? You do. Just imagine what a difference you can make in just 20 minutes a day, 3 times a week with Nordic Trek. Nordic Trek, They call it the world's best aerobic exercise. Nordic Track's patented flywheel provides smooth, non-jarring continuity of motion, so there's no stress to your back or knees. Your total body gets into the action. That's not true with ordinary exercisers. Nordic Track's total body workout burns more calories. You'll lose weight, reduce stress, and feel better. I'll bet you never imagined fitness at home could be this easy. Now is the time to get rid of that unfit body.
Create a new you.
Try Nordic Track for 30 days at home with no risk or obligation.
You'll see and feel the difference.
Call for a free video and brochure.
Tomorrow, for this lady, the golden years are a big splash. Meet a woman who's paddling into her prime and rowing strong. Join Larry Woods as he travels across America on CNN's Early Prime, 4 p.m. Eastern tomorrow.
Welcome back to Crossfire. The Senate today failed to override President Bush's veto of a bill to extend unemployment payments for 2 million Americans whose benefits have run out in the recession. Joining us to discuss this are two distinguished members of Congress, Democrat Tom Downey of New York and Republican Whip Newt Gingrich of Georgia. Newt, the idea of unemployment insurance is that it's insurance to help people who are looking for a job. In a recession, it takes longer to find a job. That's why in previous recessions, without any fuss, Democrats and Republicans together have said, fine, we're going to make it easier to extend unemployment benefits. Why such a fuss about not doing it this time?
Well, I think, first of all, Michael, I want to report that this afternoon, as soon as the Senate had acted, literally within an hour and a half, I rose on the floor and I asked to bring up the Michael Dole bill, which the president would sign, which would extend unemployment for 10 weeks. Now, it's very different from the Democratic bill. It actually is paid for. It meets the budget requirements. It keeps the budget agreement. And therefore, it makes sense if you're worried at all about the deficit and about fiscal prudence. But it does extend unemployment for 6 weeks.
Okay, I want to get to you about that Republican alternative and the details of it. But before that, I would like you, well, you can't look me in the eye, so look the camera in the eye and tell us that there would be any Republican bill today if you weren't worried about something to come up with to counter the fact that the Democrats proposed to do something about this unemployment compensation.
Well, I'll say it differently, Michael. If the Democrats would have come up with a bill which actually kept the budget agreement and was paid for, you'd probably have an unemployment bill signed.
If it had been up to the Republicans alone, there would have been no bill whatsoever. Isn't that true?
Go ahead. Well, let's Tom Downey.
Answers itself.
It seems to me it was a ridiculous statement in the Senate today. I believe it was Senator Benson. Simply because the Democrats couldn't get the 20 weeks extension, they are saying no to the 6 to 10 weeks the Republicans have proposed. Now, if you care about the unemployed, rather than grabbing some issue to smack George Bush over the head with, it seems to me you'll sign on to the Dole bill and give these guys the extended unemployment benefits and then go back to your argument.
Pat, let me deal with the Dole bill specifically and what we think is wrong with it. First of all, the idea that it's paid for is nonsense. It isn't. Secondly, it doesn't cover about 900,000 people who have exhausted benefits. And thirdly, and this is something I know you feel deeply about, it doesn't cover veterans. Those people who have been discharged honorably from the service will not get benefits.
That's
so the
not
Dole,
true.
yes, it is.
It is not true.
The Dole bill is not going to pass the Congress. It will be debated and discussed, but it is not going anywhere simply because it doesn't do the job. Now, can I let me deal with this question of the stunt that Mr. Gingrich tried to pull today, jumping up to try and bring it onto the floor in unanimous consent. He knows that there is an orderly process to do this. For months and months, the House Republicans have steadfastly refused to be for anything. And only when they saw the juggernaut and the need in their constituencies have they come up with this proposal. Now, the fact is, we have to work out a compromise. The president is not going to get everything he wants, and we are not going to get everything we want. But the unemployed people in this country, 2 million of them, need to see us stop dithering and get on with the business of providing the benefits.
What Tom Downey just said is not true on 2 counts. First of all, the Dole bill does, in fact, take care of all veterans who left the service, except those who left to get a job. The fact is, if you voluntarily left to go to school or to go back to work, you don't get any kind of benefit. But if you in any way are discharged, the word he used, you're covered by this bill. I read the section myself.
No, you're wrong.
That's just plain not true, Tom. I have read the bill.
Well,
it's in the bill. Go read the bill.
I've read the bill. I've written
let me make the second point here.
Make a second point.
If I might. Because I think there's a whole falsehood about the way Democrats talk about the rules of the House and Senate. The Republicans in the House have asked for the last 6 weeks to bring up the Dole bill. We've asked for the last 6 weeks to bring up the Economic Growth Act to create 1,100,000 new jobs. The fact is, the Democrats first strangle our bills in their committees that they control, and then they complain because we take the only device we can, which is to go to the floor.
I got to ask you about what you just said. Do I understand you correctly? If a guy leaves the service to get a job but doesn't have a job, he doesn't get unemployment compensation?
He doesn't get unemployment compensation if he left the service.
If he is honorably, discharged and does not seek to re-enlist under the bill, he does not get unemployment benefits. Those are the facts.
Wait a second, Michael. The fact is that people who voluntarily go out into the job market are in a different class than people who lose their jobs.
No, the fact is, Newt, that you do not treat veterans as generously or as fairly, not those who are in the regular service and not those who were in the reserves. If you read the bill carefully, you will find that the Dole bill does not extend unemployment benefits to those who didn't go to the Persian Gulf. You have thousands of people who were mobilized but didn't go to the Persian Gulf. Under the Dole bill, they are not covered.
If they were mobilized for Desert Storm, they're covered. Let me make an offer to Tom. Let me make an offer. And it's the same offer Pat made. We are prepared this week to cover the 2.5 million people that we agree with you need to be covered. Now, we could sign that bill this week. We could have the checks going out by Friday or Monday, and 2.5 million Americans would be getting unemployment checks, hundreds of thousands of them for 10 weeks, all of them for at least 6 weeks. Instead, in order to run Democratic campaign commercials, you first held the bill at the Senate desk for 8 days, did not send it to the president, and now my guess is you're not going to be willing to pass a bill the president will sign. You will only pass a bill the president will veto, and that means you are using the unemployed of America as pawns.
Okay, when we come back, we're going to give it up. When we come back, we'll give Mr. Downey a chance to respond, and we'll raise the question, has the Thomas confirmation hearings poisoned politics for 1992?
What makes birthdays so special? Is it the party, the presents, the cake, or is it something more? Perhaps birthdays are special because we're celebrating the most precious gift of all, life. Unfortunately, there are many, many boys and girls in this world whose lives offer little reason to celebrate. Did you know in many countries, 2 out of 5 little ones never even make it to their 5th birthday? In Bangladesh, a 4-year-old must drink from the same disease-infested water that the animals bathe in. And in El Salvador, a little girl lies in a dark corner of her family's hut, stricken with tuberculosis, too weak to move. But there is something you and I can do. Together with the people at Save the Children, we can help bring years and years of healthy, happy birthdays to little children all over the world. All it takes is $20 a month and a little love and compassion to become a sponsor. And your sponsorship dollars, combined with others, can do so much, like provide immunizations to children threatened by disease, or help build wells for families who lack clean water. There's no obligation. You don't even have to send money now. Just call. In a few days, you will receive a child's photograph and some information about that child and Save the Children. So please call and help give a little child what he really needs most, another birthday.
Bring a lifetime of happy birthdays to a child who needs you. Call 1-800-368-2800. That's 1-800-368-2800.
On CNN tomorrow, dealing with the problems that arise between black men and black women on Cryer and Company. Then from blue jeans to soda pop, how well does sex sell on Sonia Live, all tomorrow on CNN.
Tom, why don't you all stop the political argument, take the president's bill, sign it, send it down to him, get those benefits going, and then come back and argue over what you're arguing about here?
Pat, there are deep flaws with the Dole bill, and I think it can be improved. I think it can be improved in a way that the president will sign. You're absolutely right to suggest that people need the benefits, and we should be about the business of providing them. This sort of dialogue where Newt accuses the Democrats of holding bills and wanting to play politics with it is only partially true. The reality is that the Bush administration has not been interested in unemployment. They've talked about this recession in the past tense when it is a very real problem for a lot of people. The president has proven that he can have his veto sustained. Okay, there are 300 votes in the House to help these people with their benefits, and I think we can work out a deal, and I think we should do it quickly.
Newt, I'm going to ask you about this claim that this bill is self-financing, the Republican bill. That's totally phony. Among other things, you want to, this is typical bit of phony Republican financing. Student loans, people are supposed to pay back their student loans through deductions from their tax refunds. That expires in 1994. You're going to say, we'll extend that in 1994 and count the money now. That kind of stuff. Isn't that just the same kind of malarkey, phony accounting we've had throughout the entire 1980s?
Michael, I think you can make the argument that we don't pay for it immediately, we pay for it over time. The Democrats never pay for it.
We don't pay for it at all.
And maybe that's the difference between the two parties.
You know this student loan thing is going to be extended anyway. That's not real money.
There's $8 billion in a trust fund specifically set aside to pay these benefits. $8 billion, and the trust fund is growing, and the travesty of this is that only the state of Rhode Island has triggered unemployment benefits, extended benefits, and the money is sitting there. It was raised for this purpose, and it needs to be expended.
And by the way, it is the Democrats who pledged in the budget deal that if the president agreed to raise taxes, the Democrats would keep that $8 billion in the trust fund as part of the budget deal. So
now there's an emergency.
All right, you guys, time out. We'll have you both back very soon. Thanks a lot, Newt Gingrich. Thank you, Tom Downey. Pat and I will have a calm discussion with no technical details in about a minute.
The following commercial announcement was recorded prior to Michael Landon's death. Mr. Landon authorized its continued broadcast because of his belief in the content of this program.
Hi, I'm Michael Landon. For the last 3 years, John Ritter has been telling America about where there's a will, there's an A video seminar for students that has literally turned C and D students into A students, almost overnight. Our hope was to help thousands of students do better in school. Well, this program has exceeded our wildest expectations. Over 1 million grade school, high school, and college students have watched or listened to these tapes. 1 million. And the results have been incredible.
I went from straight C's and D's to straight A's and B's. My grade point average went up from a 1.8 to a 3.0, and I made the honor roll for the first time.
He didn't want to watch the tapes, and I made him watch them. And I can't even believe the difference. It totally changed his whole motivation and his whole attitude towards learning. He's gone from C's and D's to A's and B's, which is way more than I ever expected.
This seminar teaches students how to learn more in less time. The 1991-92 grade school, high school, and college editions are each available on 2 video cassettes or 4 audio cassettes and include the seminar manual. Look, your child's education is the most important contribution to their future you'll ever make. Don't just tell them to get better grades. Give them the tool that makes it possible. Here's how.
Call 1-800-545-5200. Have your credit card available when you call. The grade school, high school, and college seminars are each available on 2 video cassettes or 4 audio cassettes. All seminars come with a full money-back guarantee. So call now, 1-800-545-5200. 1-800-545-5200.
Pat, everyone is disgusted with Congress over these Judiciary Committee hearings, but I'm a little confused about why. Women, of course, are disgusted because the Senate Judiciary Committee didn't consider these sexual harassment charges until they were leaked. But are you disgusted because they considered them at all? Would you want them not to consider it?
Well, look, I think they should have looked at that garbage in private, and the senators should have done that, and then they aired all that garbage. But look, we got the House bank. You got them.
Look, don't give us your speech. Save it for the road.
All right, save it for the road. You go out on the road one time, Michael, and mention to your audience we need term limits and get rid of all of them. The whole audience will.
Why don't they vote against them if they're so mad?
I hope George Bush will run against the Congress of the United States. If he does, he'll pick up seats and he'll win a landslide.
Well, there you go. There's a lot of haranguing. No answer to my question, but I'm used to that. that. From the left, I'm Mike Kinsley. Good night for Crossfire.
We don't give answers, we win elections, Michael.
That's exactly right.
Elect and elect. From the right, Pat Buchanan. Join us tomorrow night for another edition of Crossfire.
So I dropped by my buddy Jack's house the other day. I find him with a strange expression on his face, which can only mean one thing. He's thinking. I'm tired of having to read everything to keep up with sports, he says. I'm no Evelyn Wood, you know. This from a man who thinks C-Spot Run is a tongue twister. Hey, I said, there's one place you can get it all. The Sporting News. It's the only magazine that gives you baseball, football, hoops, and hockey 52 weeks a year. It's got stats like you've never seen, and reports on every team, even off-season. To top it all off, the Sporting News has awesome special issues, and they don't cost you a penny more. Sounds like the Sporting News is all I need. So what's it gonna cost me? Look, just call this toll-free number. You get a whole bunch of issues for just a few bucks. You can spread out payments, even charge it. Gee, Jack says, I can get it all in the Sporting News and get the best deal around? For a brief, thrilling moment, the wind whistling between Jack's ears was stilled.
The Sporting News, more than just the score. This is CNN.
Hello and welcome to CNN Overnight. I'm Dave Michaels at the CNN Center in Atlanta. The town of Killeen, Texas, is trying to deal with what authorities are calling the worst mass shooting in U.S. history. Some people held a candlelight vigil Wednesday night in front of the scene. Police say 35-year-old George Hennard drove his pickup truck through a window at a Luby's restaurant Wednesday and opened fire on the lunchtime crowd with a high-powered pistol. Authorities say he killed 22 people and wounded at least 20 others before he killed himself. Police say they have no idea why he went on the shooting spree. Many residents in Eureka, California are outraged at a police video. Officers say the tape was made in fun for a police roast several months ago, and it was intended to be shown only at police gatherings. Reporter Sean Comey from CNN affiliate KIEM was given a copy of that tape. He has the rest of that story.
I solemnly swear.
I solemnly swear.
To break every rule I can.
To break every rule I can.
It was just a joke. That's what officers of the Eureka Police Department say about this video. But many groups may not think the way they are depicted in the tape is very funny. A white officer made up to look like a black man tries to sell stolen police equipment. Even the disabled are targets of ridicule, as a patrolman who hit a retarded newspaper delivery man in his police car a few years ago uses the incident as the basis for a fake TV commercial.
Matt Duran, the paperboy exterminator. Matt Duran, exterminator, at 444 splat.
He always gets his man.
Eureka police officials say the officers who made the video didn't mean to offend anyone. They just did it for laughs. But no one seems to be laughing anymore.
If there are any groups of people that are offended by anything that is on that tape, I would certainly apologize on behalf of the department, and I think all of the department members, because that wasn't the intent.
The chief says he has no plans to discipline the officers who made the tape, but he says the department has learned a lesson from the affair, that in terms of public relations, a camera can be as dangerous as a loaded gun. In Eureka, Sean Comey for CNN.
State police in Connecticut say they will continue to put the brake on speeders, but without the use of handheld radar guns. The ban is believed to be the first of its kind in the U.S. The ban follows claims by 3 municipal officers that daily use of the handheld radar guns caused them to develop cancer. State police say they will continue to use car-mounted radar guns. The drama heightens in baseball playoff action. That story and Thursday's weather when CNN Overnight continues.
For one-stop home shopping, look to Carpets of Dalton under the big sign when you're looking for our low prices, best selection, and great service. And you don't have to look any further than I did. For area rugs featuring custom styles to fit your individual taste or from patterns in stock, plus beautiful hardwood floor in parquet or plank. After 20 years in the business, Carpets of Dalton is still growing to meet your home furnishing needs. Carpets of Dalton, under the big sign, exit 135 in Dalton, Georgia.
I put off going to the doctor. But this burning stomach kept waking me up at night. Finally, I just went. I can imagine how relieved I was when my doctor said, "My Lanta." He said,